Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first Women in Energy panel discussion today. My name is Sally Ebrahimzadeh. I'm a reservoir engineer at 555 Energy and an active member and volunteer with SBE Gulf Coast section. I also have the honor of moderating this panel discussion today. We are delighted to have you joining us tonight and for this special panel, Women in Energy, sponsored by APPIH. American Petroleum Professionals of Iranian Heritage is a nonprofit, non-governmental, non-political organization, and their main focus is educational purposes. Before I introduce our panelists tonight and our topic, let me mention a few housekeeping items here. This meeting will be recorded, so if you miss any part of this panel discussion, it will be available on our YouTube channels after this meeting, and you're more than welcome to share with your colleagues. Also, keep in mind, please keep your microphones muted, obviously during the conversation. At the end of this panel, I will save some time for Q&A. So please write your questions, type your questions in the chat box in the Zoom. And at the end of this panel, Hamid will forward me the questions. I will choose the most relevant ones and I will ask them to our panels. If we don't get to any of these questions, we will save them for this for future panels. All right. Obviously, women in energy topic, it can be covered in only 1 hour of Zoom call, but we promise we continue this dialogue in our future events, and this is a good start. I've heard that they've been wanting to start this conversation back in 2019, and we're glad we're here today. And before I let our panelists introduce themselves, the purpose of this panel is mainly, we want our panelists to share their career story and tell us how this career has been evolved for them. How did they started? How did they end up here? Are they happy? And any challenges, any opportunities that they took advantage of, and just basically tell us their story. And at the end, after they share their story, we want to ask them if they have any advice for any students who are interested to go into energy industry, or any young professionals that they have doubt if they want to stay, if they want to continue, or even if they want to transition even to energy industry. So we have 4 terrific panelists today here with us. Vida Gholami is a business intelligence manager at SoCalGas. Sanaz is a vice president of reservoir engineering at Terra Energy Partners. Farnaz Zarian is the incoming data analyst in oil and gas. And Sokhanvarian is a regional business manager at Evonik. So I'm going to ask them to take a few minutes each, and we'll go in the order of name them, to just tell us your career story. You can start with your undergrad and how you got to where you are today. And tell us about your role in your current company, if you're working or if you're in transition. Tell us a little bit. We're going to go ahead and start with Vida. Please tell us your story, Vida.
Hi, Sally, and hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Vida Gholami here. I'm a business intelligence manager in SoCalGas. But if I want to go back and start my story with my undergrad, I did petroleum engineering for undergrad back in Iran. Then I moved to US I did my master's and PhD in petroleum and natural gas engineering from West Virginia University. And that wasn't the end of education for me. Currently, I'm doing my master's in business analytics from Georgia Tech too. I will be graduated this semester, and I think no matter how many times you graduate, when you see the finish line, it's a good feeling to have. But career-wise, I worked in Iran for less than 2 years after my undergrad, and then while I was doing my PhD, I shifted to part-time PhD. I started working as a full-time research associate in West Virginia University. I was doing teaching, performing research. There was a researcher group that I was managing. And then I joined a consulting company, which my main role there was mainly doing reservoir engineering in terms of modeling and simulation. And that was before I joined SoCalGas. In SoCalGas, since 2018, I have been wearing multiple hats. I started as a storage field engineer in the undergrad data management, got undergrad storage data management. And after that, I was doing project management till I joined the this current role that I have, which is the business intelligence manager. And to give a very high level idea of my current role, I'm managing two different teams of supply chain in the supply chain, business in the category management analysis, and the other side is in the data analysis. And what we do in a nutshell is working with different stakeholders, whether internally or outside our department and organization, to look at the data, perform some data modeling, perform some visualization, bring insight into the data that we have, and help stakeholders make better decisions. So I'm happy to answer any question that might come up.
Wonderful. Something that I noticed in your introduction is you finished your PhD and then you started the master for data analytics. So we're going to have some questions on that, because I know a lot of people want to know how someone can get a PhD and go back to school and get a master. So we're going to have some questions at the end. Sanaz, please go ahead. Tell us your story.
All right. Thank you. So hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here today among the other great professionals that are telling us the story. I kind of start with where I am today and kind of tell you a little bit, of what really happened that and that kind of a turning point in my career. So I'm with Terra Energy Partners. Terra is a startup company. You know, we started Terra back in 2015, kind of beginning 2016. And we really started from nothing. And we were a team of 5 people, technical people, including our CEO, who is Michael Land. And he got the backing, private equity money that was needed to start an oil and gas company. So, so kind of like, this is where I am and how I got there, which was I really didn't think when I started, graduated from USC, I would be where I was in 2015. So, and that's really something that I want to share. But before I jump into that, I tell you about a story that, when I moved from Iran to Los Angeles, went to USC, I wanted to get a master's at USC. And then, so I was at Dr. Ishaq's office, Dr. Ishaq is the head of, you all know him, head of petroleum engineering department. And I was at his office and, I went there to kind of talk about, can I, get a scholarship? How can I apply? All that. And then the first thing that he told me was that, hey, you know how in Iran, the culture is that a girl should be shy, like kind of quiet, soft-spoken, polite, not that girls are not polite anywhere else, but kind of like those are all the traits that are associated with a polite girl, right? And then he was like, all that throw them out of the window. Here, you won't get anywhere if you are sitting back, if you're not outspoken, if you're not, so if you're not as energetic as you should be. So it's, and I was like, okay, but obviously I didn't change overnight. But then it's interesting because back to kind of that point that I was making at the beginning, I got there, and among the 5 people that started Terra, because I had the opportunity to meet Michael Land. And the way that I met Michael Land was really through a friend of mine. So she was this 22-year-old lady, graduated from UT, American, and then she started, she did my same internship that I did at Occidental, which was my previous company. I started out of school with Occidental. And then on the first day that we got hired, her boss's boss's boss. So she goes, and after Michael welcomes everyone, he does a, kind of a walk on their floor. And then Michael goes, and Kelly goes, my friend goes and calls Michael's secretary and say, hey, I really want to have a meeting with Michael and I want him to be my mentor. So just like that first day of, I would never do that, right? Because I'm like, I can't, who would call boss's boss's boss? But she did. And she, being my friend, really gave me the opportunity to be, to use that as asking Michael Land to be my mentor too. And he was engaged throughout my career and in my progress at Oxy. And really, I had the opportunity to have him as the mentor. And he really learned about what I was learning at Oxy. And it was kind of like a 5-year interview. He always says, I interviewed you for 6 years. So, he was kind of engaged with my work. And then finally, when he wanted to start his company, he picked me as the technical person, and then we started there. So, I think the message that I just wanted to give is that, I didn't change. I didn't become that outspoken, the lady that would pick up the phone and call, her boss's boss. But someone that was a lady that was really, I think, helped me with that. And obviously there's other factors involved as well, but that was really the turning point in my career.
Very good, Sanaz, and thank you for the introduction. What is your role right now at the company as Vice President of Engineering?
Yeah, I have kind of the team of engineering working for me. So what we do is kind of we operate the asset that we have. We have about 7,000 gas wells that we operate, and also we do a lot of M&A activities. We made 2 acquisitions last year, so we do a lot of evaluation for new assets to bring onto Terra, and then kind of expand Terra as business.
Wonderful. So basically, you did put a good impact on your job, so that's why you were hired. And another interesting thing that I heard in your introduction is you came from Oxy to a much smaller company. So we're definitely going to have some questions on that at the end, because when people ask me questions when I'm in meetings or seminars or conferences, a lot of people wondering, should I go to a major company, small company? And they like to know the culture. So you're the perfect person to know about that because you have experience in both companies as well. Wonderful. Thank you very much for your introduction. I'm going to head to Farnaz. You're next. Please tell us your story.
Hi, everybody. I hope all of you are doing well, and I'm happy to be here. I'm going to start from bachelor's in Iran. I did my bachelor's in chemical engineering, petrochemical engineering at Amir Kabir University. Did 3 months of internship for Behran oil refinery, and as part of the bachelor's program and so on, and left the country to continue my graduate studies in the US. At USC, I continued with chemical engineering, and I very much enjoyed it. When I was done with my master's, because I was very interested in the oil and gas, and I had the downstream experience, I decided to get another master's in petroleum engineering. So, it has been a lot of ups and downs in terms of what I want to do. And 2 years later, I decided I want to do something else. And that's, I think everybody kind of is like that. I learned a lot of things along the way. While at USC, the last 2 years, I did 2 great internships with Chevron, energy technology company, and I was working with Brightburn Energy Partners for the last 5-6 months of my master's in petroleum. Right away, I started with Chevron in Houston as a reservoir and production engineer. I was in their research lab working on enhanced oil recovery projects of all over the world, US, international, and onshore, offshore projects. Wonderful experience. Was with Chevron for 5 years. Then took a little bit of time off to take care of my family, did some consulting, joined BP in 2019 as a completion engineer, although I didn't have any experience in completion other than having had experience, a lot of experience in chemical side of the oil and gas industry because of my background and my experience in Chevron Research Lab. So amazing experience with BP, worked on Mad Dog project, learned a lot about the oil industry in the operation side, because in Chevron I was in the research side. So in BP it was completely different. I was on a project that BP was spending about $1.5 million per day. So the pace of the operations is totally different, and the technologies used were mind-boggling. While at BP, I was also involved in some digitalization projects where I completed some, project for them. And based on their feedback, I realized, I'm very interested in data analytics. So let's deep dive into data analytics and see if I really enjoy it, I did in the project that I did for them. And I completed some Udacity certifications, and I'll soon be joining an oil and gas company as an analyst. That's to be announced because I'm in the pre-employment, process, and I cannot disclose the name of the company, but I'm very excited for the new path that I'm taking. It's still in the oil and gas industry, but I'm a little bit moving from the petroleum engineering side to the analytics side and digitalization.
Wonderful experience. You have a full pack of experience with you. So I think whoever hires you in the next chapter of your life, it's a lucky company. I hear you have a lot of experience in the international, and we will touch on that at the end of the Q&A because a lot of folks want to know about the experience of a female with the international and bigger projects in the major companies. Thank you very much, Farnaz.
Thank you.
Kate, tell us your story.
Sure. Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today. A lot of amazing stories, and it really shows that it's true. No one size fits all. So if I want to start with my path, I would start with background on my education. I have a bachelor in polymer engineering from Iran, and then I received my master's and PhD in petroleum engineering from Texas A&M University. For my path, I think most of the focus for me when I talk now is on the education on my master and PhD at Texas A&M, because I truly believe that was a foundation for me that it took me to the path of my journey. For me, the platform and utilization of it goes really hand in hand, and it really helped me to reach where I am today. My advisor played a big role in my professional life. He worked most of his life in industry in Saudi Aramco before moving to university, very well known in industry. He had almost around 40 to 50 grad students, and with 8 and 9 labs. And for me, it's important to, beside job description on anything you do, look at the goals that you want to achieve, because I think that helps you to advance. So for me, as being a student, I really wanted to develop interpersonal skills beside technical skills that I was acquiring through studying. Of course, that posed a lot of challenges because I became a lab manager for one of my advisors' lab. And I had to put extra hours in on top of studying, doing my research and working on my dissertation. And if I want to give some of the examples of the challenges, for example, if an instrument was broken, I was responsible to repair it. So I had to find a company, I had to negotiate on price because we had limited budget, and my advisor always was saying, I don't have a tree growing money on it. So you can see that I was developing a lot of skills, like negotiation skills, developing my contact, people management, prioritization. And I was also responsible to order all the chemicals. Through all those steps and responsibilities, I was getting invitation to attend a lot of events from these vendors. And I never forget the first event that I attended. I was so scared. Not only I was the only student and everyone was from industry and big titles, big names, but I was among the few females there. But I took the opportunity, I further developed my network. I attended SP conferences, presented my papers, and by the time I was about to graduate, I had a decent size of network, and I learned a lot through them, and I could land an internship position and then a full-time job. Naturally, because of my background and my degree, I started in R&D, oil and gas market in a chemical company with Sasol, and it was a great opportunity. I was working there for over a year, and then I realized while I was working on these new chemistries for different areas within oil and gas that it's not enough for me. I had so many questions in my mind. Some of them were like, can we scale this up? Is it even valuable? Can it be applied in the field? Does it generate money? Like, what's the profitability look like? What I'm competing against available solutions. So all these questions that I had, it moved me toward talking to our commercialization team and business colleagues. They were very helpful, and somehow that set the stage for me for my next challenge. And as a result, I moved to the business side of oil and gas within the same company. And after spending some time there, I was amazed with all the challenges internally and externally, and how being in a chemical company and serving different markets, how similar concepts or chemistry can be applied to similar solutions within different markets and industries. And kind of thinking across industries help a lot. So as a result, that really guided me toward my next challenge when I moved to a new company, Evonik, 10 months ago. In my current role, I'm a regional business manager in Silane Group. I'm exposed to different markets. In my role, I'm really helping my company to win through supplying specialty chemistry to all these different markets and customers where they can create value out of it and make life better. So I think that was my journey, almost 11 years journey in a nutshell. And I'm really excited to see what future holds. Thank you for the time, for sharing it.
Wonderful, Kate. I was taking notes of your talk, and I got to the end of my paper. What a great background. Starting with the lab manager, I always wanted to work in a lab and wanted to have a hand. I just did my capstone at U of H, and it was one of the best experience I had with Dr. Meyer at the U of H in the lab. The challenges that you mentioned, we're going to touch on that, every single one of them. Two things that I got from your talk was the importance of networking, the networking that you made for yourself, and also the business side. So I think this was a good introduction to my next question, that about the challenges of challenges and the workforce. As you've mentioned, a lot of places that we go in, very few female are present in the oil and gas industry, either is the conventions, either in the conference, in any networking part. Excuse me. So I got some statistics here that it shows that less than 30% of female of workforce in oil and gas are female. Not a good number, and this is in the United States, and much better. According to our topic for this talk is past, now, future, challenges and opportunities. Yes, it's a big change from the past. I am part of the SPE committee that we choose the we announced Legion of Honors once a year. Legion of Honors is a category of 50 years of SPE membership. Last year, I had an honor to call one female who got into SPE membership in 1971. I had to call her and congratulate her. So yes, of course, now when you go to SPE, in our section, Gulf Coast section down in Houston, a lot of female in the industry. But even any part of the industry, either is oil and gas, renewables, energy finance, consulting, all of these sectors, they have a long way to go to have more females in this industry. What can we do? I mean, there are some challenges, right? And then there are also some, we as female in this, in our roles, either is in our company, in our community, in our these small or large organizations that we have, what can we do to attract more female engineers to the industry? Even if we are happy in our own place, I mean, are we satisfied where we are and we think that's a good time to invite more female students or young professionals and invite them to, hey, this is a great industry, you should be in. So are we feeling more comfortable here and to invite them? So my question is, first of all, do you think that, is there a problem? Is there a gender gap in our industry? Some people might say, no, our company is perfect. So we're talking about abroad, this industry. Vida, do you want to touch on that? You are back in school. Tell us, what did you feel like going? It was any reason that you had to go back to school to be on the where you want to be? Do you see any challenges? Tell us.
Well, what I'm doing right now in terms of doing the master's in data analytics is kind of still in the line of what I was doing. So when I joined Dr. Mohaggeg's team in 2007, I started working in application of data science in petroleum, like anything petroleum engineering related, which was a broad, like from reservoir engineering to well log and different areas in that field. When we started working on it in 2007, data science was the future. So everybody was talking, if anybody was talking about it in the industry, they were saying that the future is that, but there was a huge resistance to the idea of bringing data science and machine learning into oil and gas. And I feel like oil and gas has been behind in many things from other industries. Inclusion, like diversity, is one of them. So the reason that I decided to go back to school, start studying the data science, is because I was doing something, I had learned it through research, but I wanted to know more in terms of, the background, the algorithm that goes behind the whole work. But this is my advice if I want to talk to anyone who's starting, who's in the industry, and who's starting even coming to the industry. I would say that definitely you have to pay a lot of attention to the data science, broaden your knowledge in that terms, because no matter what industry you are in, if you have that science, is gonna, first of all, put you ahead of a lot of people, because data science is present, is not future anymore. And the other thing is that it's going to help you in your career, because there are a lot of data, like data is abundant, no matter what your role is, whether you're in dental, medical, or you're in petroleum industry. It's going to be really helpful for you to know that on top of the knowledge that you have. But I want to talk about the gender gap that we do have in the industry. It does exist. I mean, the anecdote of one company not being perfect is not going to cover the whole fact that the data is showing. The gender gap exists, pay gap exists, and we all have stories, and I'm sure we can write books about the challenges that we have been through, the experiences that we ourselves have had through our journey. But it's better to talk about the reasons behind those challenges, why we believe that gender gap exists, and what we can do to solve it. If there is a problem, there should be a solution. And I personally believe one of the reasons is because women made their way into the workforce, and of course, petroleum industry, very late. So that's why it's a male-dominated industry. And, you know, imagine yourself going to a party, a huge gathering, you don't know anyone. What would you do? The first thing that you do probably is looking around and finding the people who are similar to you, or you think they're similar to you, approach them and start talking to them. And this is like they talk about the biases, and we all have it because we're human. Affinity bias exists in all of us. So if the industry is male-dominated, you wouldn't be surprised if men who are interviewing the candidates would be actually more leaned toward the candidates who are male and hire them. So you see, it's a vicious cycle. So if there are not enough women even coming to the industry, there's a pipeline issue. How are they going up to the leadership? So if we sit on that excuse that there aren't enough women, so that's why they're not getting it to the execution board, the executive board, it's gonna go on and on forever. So we have to find a solution for it. I can talk for hours to you about the solutions that I think it should be, like we should work on. But the main one that I want to talk about is the culture. The culture, and it's not only the culture that we're talking about. The society is not only in the family, is the school, and is the workforce, like workplace.
Absolutely. One of the reasons that we need to push more is actually starting from school. I'm one of the judges at the science fair in Houston, and when I get very excited when I see a lot of young girls working in a team to get to more excited into STEM. And absolutely, we need a culture change. Yes, absolutely is right. And another thing is, yes, we need more, I guess, based on what you mentioned, we need more role models that are female, to even men. They can be very much into encouraging young professionals and young students to come to the industry. Yes, you're absolutely right that there is evidence on it that when men are hiring, they tend to hire more men. And so, of course, we need more. That's why we want a lot of our CEOs and female executives to come and talk to a lot of these events and encourage especially I have an eye on the questions on the side. I know I said I'm going to take the questions to the end, but some of the questions are very similar to what we're talking right now. Somebody's asking how SPE, for example, one of the big organizations in oil and gas and energy industry, how can that help them to career for the female? Yes, absolutely, you're right, and there's a lot of work to do, but there has been a lot done. That's why we're here and we're talking and we're having this panel discussion today. Thank you very much, Vida. I'm going to let other panelists have a chance to give their view to us. Who's next? Sanaz, do you want to say something about the female in workforce in energy industry, please?
Yeah, sure. You mentioned kind of starting at school level, high school probably is the right stage, because that's where, you kind of like move on to the college and then the, further the workforce. There was a study, which was interesting. I want to share these numbers, that it seems like the trend of female engineers, entering the college has been, it's inclining. So that's a good news. But the problem is they enter the industry, but they don't stay. They either leave during college, after their internship, or they never actually start, or if they start, the number was about like 40% of female engineers starting or graduating engineering, they don't stay in that profession. And then they actually did a very good study. They had a very good sample at different type schools. They followed those engineers, female and male. They had a very interesting kind of system where they had the male and female, both groups, take diaries of their experience. And it comes down to, which was very interesting, is that like the female were more negative when they interned. They kind of started similar at school, even maybe more successful in terms of academic at school. And then in the workforce, they started self-doubting. They started, having low self-confidence. And part of that, like, experiences when I was reading was like, we were tasked, in the internship, for example, the female were tasked with more paper, like in secretarial work, nothing wrong with that, but they are engineering interns, right? And then, or the males were more important, they were taken more seriously. So that by itself, we can kind of see that, right? Like, you're entering an industry, you want to start and then grow, and then you're seeing all these bottlenecks. So I think I agree with Vida 100%. It's the culture, right? Like, you got all these, different generations. And I think, I was kind of thinking to myself, what's the difference between the high school and then the workforce? Well, at workforce, you got generation, baby boomers, you got generation X, you got, like millennials were entering the workforce at the time of the study, and they were having to deal with all the stereotype and then the sexism and all that we live with, right? Like, it's day in, day out. And it's very interesting that, we are engineers, and engineers are kind of, I think, the fundamental, like, we are committed to do problem solving, but we can't solve this problem, which is the basic, like, it's a well-documented problem, right? Like, there is a gender gap, and engineering is like the lowest of all the other science and math. So, yeah, I think it's changing a culture is not easy. So, but I think that we can start from ourselves. And I think one thing I say personally, I really try to filter all that. Like, it existed around me too, but I never self-doubted myself, and I never allowed anyone else to do that. So I think you can, at the minimum, start from ourselves, maybe.
Absolutely. Great points. Yes, sometimes you would think, should I just should I pay attention to what's happening, or should I just ignore it and continue? Because that's the confidence that you have. Yeah. I want to continue to where I am. I am 100% sure that I want to do this, then I will continue. And I won't let any of these obstacles stop me from that. Farnaz, based on your introduction, I think you might have some thing to share with us. Any challenges, anything that you would think it was worth sharing today that as a female engineer you encounter, and also how did you overcome that problem? Can you tell us a little bit?
As the other ladies mentioned, the gender gap in not only petroleum engineering, it is all over, like even in computer science, there is a gender gap. The oil and gas industries, especially the bigger ones, have made a lot of progress to resolve or somehow alleviate the problem. And they have made a lot of progress over the past 20 years. It's going to be very long if I want to tell stories, but I heard from my colleagues at Chevron that 20 years ago, there was literally no woman on the floor except somebody who was taking care of the arrangement of meetings and so on. And
Secretary.
Nowadays you see a lot of women all over in all size companies. But I want to touch on another thing which is related specifically to the oil and gas industry. The conditions of working in the oil and gas industry is not in favor of women, especially if you have a kid. How are you supposed to go offshore 2 to 4 weeks at a time? What if you want to go, but you cannot? What if you don't even want to go? Like Sheryl Sandberg of Facebook says, lean in. What if you don't want to lean in? So what if you want to lean in when you first start and then your family situation changes? So these are all the things that, everybody needs to navigate through their own, circumstances. But there are some things we can address in terms of alleviating the problem of how many women oil and gas companies hire. But at the same time, like when I was at BP, Deepwater Gulf of Mexico operations, they were saying whoever a woman that we hire, they start with us right out of college at 22, 23. They are with us for 2, 3, 4, 5 years. They get married. They want to get out of Deepwater Gulf of Mexico. Why? Because it's difficult for a woman with a newborn to go offshore, to be, all the time to be stressed out about 24/7 operations. Let's address that too. Let's be realistic. Like some areas, we have a lot of, growth. We've had a lot of growth in terms of having more women in engineering, specifically petroleum engineering. But in some areas, it is really difficult because, you can't find many families that have stay-at-home dads. I have seen a couple of them, heads of, business units at Chevron, at BP, very accomplished lady, and her husband was a stay-at-home dad, right? So she could travel 11 months out of 1 year, right? She was all over the world. Every 3 to 5 years, she was working somewhere in the world on those projects so she could climb the ladder. So I wanted to touch on that on another angle.
Yes, I hear you. In the oil and gas and the operation side of it, yes, there are still a lot of long way to go. I want to give Kate the chance to talk to. Kate is in a business side of the oil and gas. And yes, there are some work needs to be done in the operation side of this oil and gas because, yes, you're 100% right that they're not family-friendly positions. But in academia, yes, right now a lot of people have the chance to work from home, but especially for the business, marketing, finance, and is that the way that women wants to get in? Yes, there are some. You have experience in oil and gas. Now there is an open market for someone who wants to work from home. I mean, this is a good example. What sectors are opening, their doors to women, female engineers? Let's start with business, marketing, finance, these sectors. Kate, can you share with us what do you think about this side of the oil and gas, the energy sectors, that it's more female friendly? Or it is female friendly, but do we have enough in that category?
So, I mean, no, still there is a gap. And how I witnessed that is that through especially networking events. You know, I attended a lot of after parties, after SPE conferences from the time I was a student and then when I moved to full-time jobs. And a lot of times I was among a few females there. And you see, these networking events is very important because it's personal. People get more comfortable with you rather than you just go to a professional, life or journey with them and just do transaction and business. So it's important to be part of these. And a lot of times, I remember so many events that I was alone after the conference. And you could see still in the conference, less women compared to men. But then in the after parties, there were mainly men. And I didn't miss a lot of them. I attended most of them. And, you get comfortable, you get personal. And male dominant industry also, I think, get more comfortable with you, when you attend those events. If I want to talk
about the business and the finance part.
Yes, and then if I want to talk about the SPE, I'm a technical editor in SPE Journal and SPE Production Operation, and I recently hold the position of associate editor. And the executive editor goal was to look at the percentage between women and men that they hold associate editor role, and that's how I got the invitation. So people are working on that. Yes, Absolutely. We have a long way to go, but Absolutely. I think it's important to talk about the issue, but not too much, because then it gets casual. We have to act more upon the actions and solutions. And I think everyone can start from themselves, as I think others were mentioning great points about it. I think giving opportunity to women, if we can start Absolutely. From ourselves, offering mentorship, and then I think Sanaz mentioned a lot of times about being outspoken and speaking up. It's very important because there are so many scenarios that if you speak up, it can decrease or at least prevent the gap to go further. If I want to give my own experience, I witnessed a lot of situations that it was troubling and bothered me, but I did speak up. Mm-hmm. For example, in a similar scenario, a female was very determined, but then they gave them the attribute of being aggressive. However, in the same scenario, a male counterpart was described as being assertive. These are troubling, and I did speak up about it. So it may not solve the issue immediately, but if people hear about that, no, you cannot assign being aggressive to this female. She's just assertive. She knows what she wants and she goes after it. It helps. So I think, that's what I have for now.
Very good. We're in the last 10 minutes of our meeting. I have few questions that I see in a chat box, and I want a very short answer to them. I knew it's going to be a very short meeting. 1 hour is not enough. But we promise we will continue this dialogue in the future conversation. One question that I see here is, if you will go back, will you choose energy industry, basically oil and gas? Very quick. And then at the end, I want to ask you, so we're going to share this video in this panel discussion in our future. It's going to be in our YouTube channels. So we're going to have a lot of young professionals, the students, they're going to watch this. And what would you say to young professionals who are making a decision? Do I want to go to engineering school? Do I want to go to energy industry? Or should I go to medical school? No medical school. But how are we going to encourage them? So first, answer me, if you would go back, would you choose this? And also your comments to young professionals who are making a decision to come to this industry. Let's keep the order. Vida, go ahead, please.
Sure. So going back, I give myself like the example of in my situation. When I was a kid, I was a rebel. I was against the stereotype that I was hearing against women. That's why I wanted to go to engineering. And at the time, when I went to school, it was the second year, I think, after revolution that women in Iran could actually go and study petroleum engineering. So I didn't have a clear idea of what petroleum engineers do. But if I want to give an advice would be, or if I want to look back and see if I would go, definitely engineering. And petroleum engineering in general is so broad that you don't have to go to one specific field of it. Like you can go to exploration. If you want to be more on a technical side, you can go to reservoir engineering. But I will add this, broaden your knowledge, add as much data and computer science knowledge that you can to your knowledge of whatever field you want to go, specifically if being in the tech side of it is your goal. And
I definitely got this message from you that I need to get a data science degree after this meeting. Sorry, I want to be fair to everyone. Sanaz, can you go ahead and quickly touch on that, please?
Sure. I'll try to be very quick. I know we're tight on time. So I would give you, the answer is yes, yes, and yes. I'll choose petroleum engineering over and over and over again, but I'll give you a hands-on kind of experience on, my husband is a dentist. So there was a time when I was about to graduate USC, it was extremely difficult with a student visa to get a job. You know, they would not get your resume, or they would receive your resume and they put a cross on it, meaning that like don't consider she needs, sponsorship for green card or for work authorization. So I was getting disappointed, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna become a dentist. And I was like, oh, if I become a dentist, I can work 2 hours a day or maybe two days a week, take care of my family and make a fortune. That's not how it works. I have my husband. I'm not gonna be an engineer and work 8 to 5, all that. Well, no, you work more as a dentist. So if you're choosing engineering and dentistry, I tell you that. But no, I had a great experience, and it's a novel industry. It's such a you got the exposure to finance, you got exposure to technology, science. You can do a lot in engineering.
Absolutely.
And especially petroleum engineering is very close to my heart. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sanaz, for that. Farnaz, please, you have 1.5 minutes.
The answer to your question is yes. If I was born again, I would go for engineering. What engineering? I don't know. I'll figure it out when I'm born again. But I love engineering, and my suggestion to young girls is that do not consider the money when you want to choose a major. Go for what you love, and the money will follow you, regardless of it being computer science, petroleum engineering, chemical engineering. There are so many great majors with so many different, branches that you can get into and be successful. First, figure out what you love. Then talk to a lot of people who have been in the areas that you're interested in, and you'll figure it out.
Wonderful point. Thank you very much. Yes, we're going to have some talk about startups and entrepreneurship in female world, and this was a great point that you brought up. Kate, please go ahead and tell us, will you stay in the energy industry, and What would you
Sure.
advise to? Yeah.
Actually, I'm kind of now in different industries, but yes, I would definitely go and start again with energy and engineering. And I would say as an advice that pick a mentor. It's very important. Pick a mentor.
Absolutely.
Set goals and take action. I mean, the first road and objective may not take you to your ultimate goal, but for sure the road will give you, or through the road, you will develop skills, and then finally you reach your goal. So take chances, and yeah, don't be afraid of mistakes, and transferable skills. I think it's very important that if you focus on transferable skills, no matter what, you can always find a solution to something and you get a job.
Wonderful. We have 4 minutes to the end of this panel discussion. I had few questions. Now I have tons of questions. So I promise you, we're going to continue this discussion. Yes, we're going to talk about major, small companies. We're going to talk about finance. We're going to talk about private equity. We're going to talk about so many. I'm just writing it down for future references. Thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for your questions. Thank you, our panelists. I know we all have a busy schedule, but we'll do our best to be here. I want to call every individual person who are in this Zoom meeting today, but unfortunately time doesn't allow us. But we will promise you we're going to continue this conversation, and please continue in the energy industry. The world needs you. And I wish Zoom will help us to meet everybody from around the world, which is I'm grateful, but I still, as Kate said, I do miss those after parties. Hopefully we will have more panel in the future, and thank you all so much. Thank you APBIH for sponsoring this meeting today, and have a wonderful night. This was recorded. You can find it later. You can share it with your colleagues, and see you all later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations to all of you ladies. You did a wonderful job. And
thank you so much.
Future belongs to you. And I think all the companies that have been over the past 50 years, this is the best people that I see performance, regardless of female or male. Great job.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, sir, for your feedback. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.